So we have something in common that I kind of knew, but didn't realize you were doing it, and then you stopped. You were a stand-up comedian.
So I was, I mentioned I went through a lot of cancer in my life.
Okay.
The first time was I was 19.
Wow.
And it was an outlet for me. It was something positive to focus on when I went through such a negative. And I've actually done it 3 times. I was diagnosed all 3 times within 6 years.
Wow.
And just when I thought, you're healthy, everything's good,
Right.
the next blood test, the next test, it was, no, we were wrong. You're not.
Wow.
And it's here now. And so I really use comedy as my outlet for something. It's sort of my safe place.
Right.
Comedy was my safe place to forget about what my life was going through right then and there. And I stopped when the last time I got the all clear. I was like, that's something I'm going to leave behind me and stop doing comedy for a long time. I figured if I do comedy again, I'm going to have cancer again. And I really, for a long time thought that. And then I got to become great friends with an amazing guy, John Butera.
Yes.
He has had me for quite a while now, driving him to and from comedy shows that he's doing.
Oh.
That he's producing, that he's hosting.
Is this how the
he's
connection?
actually doing.
Is this how the connection happened? From
It really was.
Wow.
It was through the car service.
Right.
And so I started doing comedy again, and I've done quite a few shows and had really great times.
Good response.
Yeah.
How long were you away from stand-up before you came back?
It was about 12 years. 12 years is a long time, especially everybody knows we have an ever-changing world right now.
Yeah.
The comedy is so much different.
The stand-up.
It's so much different. There's just so many things. You don't want to offend anybody anymore.
Oh, right. Yes.
Comedy to me should just be on the borderline of offensive.
Right.
You don't want to offend, but you should come real close so that way it's funny.
Make it edgy.
Right, edgy.
Yes.
Yeah, edgy's a perfect word.
Okay.
My comedy's different.
Right.
12.
I never saw your comedy. So
12 years ago, or previously, when I was doing it up until 12 years ago, a lot of it had to do with what I was going through in chemo treatment and all the, the funny things you kind of go through, even though a lot of other people might not find them funny seeing them.
Right.
You make light of it because you're going through it.
Right.
And it becomes funny the way you're transmitting it to your audience. And now, I haven't gone through that in 12 years.
Okay.
So now it's a lot about what life has brought. Since for me, I was very lucky. I'll be honest with our listeners. Unfortunately, the very first time I had cancer was testicular.
Oh.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, really, it was only one side.
Okay.
So I still have one.
Okay.
And with that, I was able to produce a beautiful baby boy with my now ex-wife. He's turning 8.
Okay.
But we look at all the things that I went through, and at one point, I never thought I was going to have kids.
So it's a blessing.
It's a huge blessing.
So now your son, his name's Colin.
Colin.
Yeah. So Colin's 8 years old. How does he feel about Daddy doing stand-up comedy?
I think if I told him that I was doing stand-up comedy and he'd want to come, he'd no longer like me. Because being a father of an 8-year-old, that gives you all the comedy you need. It's all the material that you absolutely need.
Are you telling me that your material's from
your
your 8-year-old son?
Most of my material has something to do with my 8-year-old son.
That's awesome. And now you were telling me you have a show coming up with John Butera.
So I do. Actually, next month, May 23rd, we're up at Mohegan Sun in Comics Roadhouse. It's about 10 o'clock at night. The show starts. It's a great place. Comics Roadhouse is it's a great show. Always there. It's your typical brick wall comedian comedy house.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
great.
Yeah.
Get there a little early, gamble some, and then come in, have some dinner, and watch a comedy show.
And that's being produced by Jeff Wade?
By Jeff Wade. Jeff Wade is a New England comedian who he's great. He's a big man. He actually kind of reminds you of Larry the Cable Guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he looks a lot like Larry the Cable Guy.
Cool.
So he's very funny, and and he knows that. So he plays off that quite well.